You are listening to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where illumination and inspiration is but a click away. With so many genre topics for you on everything that you need to know in life. We celebrate and share the people who have taken the journey before you and who are now here to serve you with their wisdom and their knowledge. The next show coming up is... Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Choose Positive Living right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sara Troy, and my guest today is Gina GardIner from the UK. She's an international number one author, has written many books. There's a wonderful list on them here. She's got a TV show coming up, which we're going to be doing a show on that as well. Plus, I'm going to be having her back on festive stress, coming back with somebody else later on in November to prepare you for that stressful season called Christmas. But today we are going to be talking about something else altogether. And when she mentioned this the other day in a conversation with her, it was, yes, we have to do a show on it. It is the epidemic of social depression. What is bringing this about? Is it the magnitude of media that we're getting from all aspects, not just the TV, but the internet, the social media? It's on your phones, it's in your ears, everybody's talking about it, and it's literally causing so much stress that people are getting clinical depression, and it's really affecting production, it's affecting hope, it's affecting everything about our lives. So Gina and I are going to be talking about this today, and I'm going to invite you to come back and read her blog, because she's done a wonderful blog on percentages and what you can do about it and how we can change everything. So other than the show, please come back and read all about this, plus about everything else that's coming up with her new show as well. And she's mindful of information, been doing this for quite some time, and the amount of knowledge that you're going to learn today is something that take notes or go back and listen, or listen with some friends, because there's a lot to be learned. Social depression, I think we've all got a dose of it right now. What do you think, Gina?
I think that many people now are struggling on so many levels. You've talked about the news. We've had a number of conversations about the political situation. I think we are bombarded not only with news, we don't know whether it's real or fake.
Right.
Very often it's a newsreader's opinion rather than fact. So at one level, it's very difficult to determine what's going on, other than the fact that there's such a high level of uncertainty that it makes life difficult. We're hot-wired to fear uncertainty. We like to think of ourselves as being incredibly evolved, but the reality is that we are still very much, at our very core, cavemen and women.
Yeah.
And in those times, any change, any uncertainty was seen as an absolute threat to our survival, whether it was animals or the weather or other people approaching us. So on the one hand, you've got all of the political arena. We are constantly being bombarded with the thought that we've got global warming. You can see the destruction that's going on around the world. Those who've got children and grandchildren are fearful for their future. Then add the fact that we tend to compare ourselves, but we're comparing ourselves with celebrities and with photographs that have been so distorted, either because they've been airbrushed to the point where they bear very little resemblance to the original person. All those people have gone and had significant surgery done, so they look nothing like they did before. And so we are constantly comparing ourselves with something that's not real. Then people in terms of trying to help themselves feel better are anesthetizing themselves with drink, drugs, shopping, sex, possessions. And I think, and much more. For me, it's a 3D, if you like, a jigsaw puzzle. It's multidimensional, but we are consistently bombarded. And I think a lot of people are living their life, and they're living a life through fear. anxiety, worry, and stress. So a very long answer to your apparently very simple question.
Nothing simple about it because of the fact that it had such a long answer to it, and there's so many more questions to be had. We have become, in a lot of ways, such slaves to what we are being told all the time. You know, we talked in our conversation before, like wartime. Yes, people didn't know when the next bomb was coming or what was going to happen next, but people came together and they supported one another. What we're seeing, I think, globally right now, whether it's political, whether it's environmental, whether it's to do with veganism, meatism, you know, what we're looking at is divide and conquer. And when we come together at times of need, we are stronger for it, and we will always find solutions and that camaraderie and support of each other. But when we are constantly seeing the chisel dividing us and dividing us, all of a sudden we feel out there alone. How can I cope with this? I'm alone in the world. You're not. Everybody else is going through this. But whatever's happening out there, it is the chisel to divide us, because united we're stronger, divided we're not.
I think it's a very interesting comparison that you make during Second World War, when you would think that mental health would be at an all-time low, and yet the reality is that the reporting of mental ill health was at one of its lowest times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think there's again a number of reasons. People had a sense of shared purpose.
Yeah.
We lived at a time when family, community, the church, whatever job you did, had that real sense of community. And although I'm not suggesting for one moment it was entirely perfect, if you were feeling down, somebody would make you a cup of tea and put their arm around you.
Right. Yes.
But there's never been more people who live on their own. There's never been more elderly people who are isolated. You think, going back not that long ago, elderly people simply lived with their families, didn't they?
Yeah.
If you look at social media and technology, which I think has some very positive purposes, many people have a better relationship with their electronics than they do with other people. And as you say, people think that we are in silos, that we are individuals. And I think it's only when we recognize that actually we are so incredibly connected, and that when we are acting in any particular way, we think of it only affecting us. But just like a stone in the pond where it ripples out, I think every word, every action, I call it a living legacy. The words we speak, how we speak them, or whether we speak them at all, or our actions or lack of them, leave a living legacy. And if you combine that with, the fact that people are very much feeling on their own, feeling overwhelmed. Look at jobs. When I first started work, it was thought that if you went into working for local government or certain jobs, you had a job for life.
Yes.
And although it may not have been the best paid, you had security, and many people chose that over high wages. Now, when I left headship, they talked about people changing their job, their profession every 7 years. But you now talk to many, many people, and they are consistently having to reinvent themselves.
Yes.
And those people who are resilient and strong and do that actually find very often that being made redundant or having to change their job is seen as a gift. But if that knocks you, if that rocks your very sense of self, then you can see why so many people are in trouble.
Yeah.
They're either worrying about the past, and the reality is you can't do anything with it.
You'll learn from it, that's it.
That's right. Or they're anxious about the future, and it might never happen.
Right. And we don't realize what we do in the now is what's going to dictate what happens in the future. Because the now is all we've got.
It certainly is. And, there are really strong lessons that can remind us of that. My brother, aged 49, apparently full of health and vitality, was doing the London to Brighton cycle race. But it was the week before, and he was just doing the last practice with the group, appeared to fall off his bike. There was a medic in the group, but by the time they got to him, seconds, he was dead.
Yeah.
And that was a salutary lesson to me, that, you know, live today as if
Yeah.
it's your last. Make the most of that.
And of
Um,
course, you know, if you're going to go doing something you love doing, which obviously he did, and it happened so
absolutely.
fast, he
Yeah,
probably didn't even realize he'd gone, you know.
yeah,
So, and I think that is something that a lot of people are afraid to do, aren't they? It's like, well, I don't know if I should do that. I mean, I just don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. Again, what we do today we'll see tomorrow. But are we afraid to get out and follow our passion? Are we afraid to even discover what that passion is? You know, I think what we have become afraid of is fear itself, because fear is an energy that just wraps itself around your psyche, your legs, your arms, and paralyzes you. And
yeah,
very often it's like, but what am I afraid of? Because when you break things down, yes, the world is in a mess. Yes, the politicians have screwed it all up. But we have the power to change our own lives. And I think
absolutely.
that's what we forget. We keep looking at what the world is doing, and we don't look at what can we do for ourselves, and the empowerment that we need to give ourselves, and the
Yes.
permission.
I think that's very true. I mean, I've worked with many, many clients, and the sense of helplessness and
Mm-hmm.
overwhelm when they first come, you know, what can I do about it? It's beyond me. And I use an old African saying, you know, if you believe that you're too small to make a difference, spend the night in a room with a mosquito.
Yes, yes.
And I think, you know, it we can do so much to
Yeah,
help ourselves, and in small ways, you know, recognizing that when we're fearful, we want to stay within our comfort zone.
yeah,
And our comfort zone, which, if you think of it like a duvet, it's wonderful when it's really, really cold.
yes.
But in the summer, it becomes stultifying.
Mm.
It just takes our breath away. And the other thing about our comfort zone is, the minute we cross that line of perturbation, we actually step out of our comfort zone expands.
Precisely.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think for so many people, because they are fearful, their world becomes smaller and smaller until it's claustrophobic.
And
And
that
none of
and that
the
itself becomes fearful, doesn't it? Because they feel
it,
they can't breathe, you know. Yeah,
absolutely, not one of these things in isolation is going on. It's when you get
yeah.
all of them together. I tell you another thing which I think makes such a lot of difference is how many people moan and complain.
Yes.
And for me, that's like sitting in a rocking chair. You're
Mm.
moaning, but it's not actually taking you anywhere other than keeping you stuck. And if you rock enough, it'll make you seasick.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, there are times when we need to offload. I mean, the statistics are quite scary. If something goes wrong, on average, we tell 37 other people. Well, I
Mm.
don't use my 37, and I suspect you don't use your
No.
37. So somebody's using ours.
Yes. Yes.
But when things go right, we tell on average 5 people. How would
Yeah.
it be if that got swapped over?
Right.
Because
Right.
complaining is contagious. And
Yes.
you know, you go into to see somebody. I mean, this is how our conversation started. You
Mm-hmm.
go and see someone, and then they start talking about politics or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and then get fixated on that.
Right.
And by the time you leave the room, it's as if you've been with an energy vampire, because
Oh,
you leave the
yes.
room and you're just drained, aren't you?
Piranhas. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, of course, you need to talk about it, but let's talk about it in the way in which was, what can we do?
Precisely.
We have a voice, we have power, and we can make a difference if we choose to use it wisely. Moaning in and of itself does nothing apart from make you feel terrible and make everybody else around you feel terrible.
And
Don't moan.
it's okay to say, you know, this has gone wrong, I don't know what to do about it, can anyone help me? And then
Absolutely.
be open and willing to receive. You may not agree with everything that comes to you, but there could be just something there that becomes the aha moment, right? So,
And be prepared to do something different.
right,
My favourite quote of all time is Einstein's definition of madness, which is to keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. And
exactly.
yet we all do it,
Mm-hmm.
myself included at times.
Mm-hmm.
We do it more frequently, we do it harder, we do it longer.
Yeah.
And then are
And
disappointed.
unknowingly sometimes. It's
Oh,
just that repetitive pattern that we keep doing without even knowing we're doing it.
and that's a really good point, because 95% of our thinking is habitual.
Yeah.
It doesn't cross our conscious mind. So we can get very easily into these cycles. It's almost like a broken gramophone record,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
For those who are watching this who are very young probably aren't familiar with that.
It's like
But
iTunes being stuck, folks, on the same song over and over again.
those who are somewhat older will remember the old records
Needle
where,
being stuck. Yes, on
yes,
the same
yes,
thing. Yeah.
makes me feel very old. I'm going to have to find another metaphor, I think. But we just get
Yeah.
stuck. And then it's like being in the quicksand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you get stuck, and it doesn't then go upwards, your mood just goes down and down and down. I find the statistics terrifying.
Yeah.
Over half the prescriptions in the UK are for antidepressants.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who wants a really good book to read about depression should read The Lost Connections by Johann Yari, where he talks about the research to do with depression and the fact that depression has a cause, but it's not what you think it is.
Right. Right.
And I think the reason I call it societal depression is when you analyse it, many people are living actually pretty good lives.
Yes.
They've got enough to eat, they've got a roof over their head, they've got plenty of hot water for showers, good plumbing, they've got friends and family. You'd think that they would be in a position of feeling really positive and hopeful.
And
And yet,
grateful.
and
Mm-hmm.
grateful. Absolutely. I think gratitude is one of the most powerful
Yes.
things that we can practice.
But again, we look at what we don't have instead of what we do have.
Absolutely. And I think that that's really, for me, that's the crux of it.
Mm-hmm.
If you focus on what you can't do, then you can't do anything.
No.
If you focus on what you can, then things can be very different. Now, your listeners don't know me at all, but I ran an award-winning school, mainly from a wheelchair. And I'd had 2 back surgeries. And when I came out of hospital, I was back at school being the principal within a few days. And that's when I learned focus on what you can do.
Yes.
If I was at home, all I could do was watch television or read.
Mm-hmm.
If my carer hadn't left me a cup, put the coffee or the tea in it and filled the kettle, just enough for a mug, I couldn't lift it, I couldn't do anything. But I could go to school and I could effectively run my organisation.
Yes.
My mouth worked, my brain worked, my hands worked, and there were other people to do the heavy lifting.
Right, exactly.
But it was a really powerful lesson for me, not just for them, but for life, and one that I have hopefully helped other people to recognise. The gold is within, it's not out there.
But it's also, you became the example to other people. Oh my goodness, she's not at home kind of wallowing in this. She's out here being productive. She must be in pain, but look what she's contributing. And that's, so, I mean, it doesn't mean everybody who has an operation needs to get out there and back to
That's not what I'm saying at all,
right.
no.
It is about, obviously understanding your level, but also understanding that sometimes healing is being proactive. It's doing something that you love, because that increases the whole frequency and vibration in your body, which then helps with all the healing process. So don't push yourself to a point of harm, but go and do something that you love doing, because that's going to help heal you faster. Don't say, I can't. You know that you have limitations, right? So instead of saying, I can't, just say, I unable to do this, but I can do that. And the can needs to be emphasized over there.
And for everybody, it is different.
Yes, yes.
And I think that's another thing that it's really important that people take on board. But the difference between being a victim to circumstance, whatever that circumstance may be, and choosing that I'm going to make the best of this, whatever this may be. I'm going to find a way that I can maximize my capacity to do the things that are important to me. And when you do that, then whatever your situation in life, whatever your physicality, whatever your amount of money in the bank, whatever, if you step into being the best of you, you step into your power, which
Yeah.
is being you, the genuine you,
Yeah.
not comparing, not
Yeah.
worrying about what other people think, but looking inward and recognizing that you are unique. There's only one of you, that you have an amazing capacity to do all sorts of things, to be all sorts of things. You're not broken.
Right.
You don't need fixing, that you are just as you are enough, so long as you turn up. And I
Right.
think lots of people fail to turn up in their own lives.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that causes all sorts of difficulty.
You know, you're a beautiful gift of imperfection. And that's what makes you so beautifully unique.
Yeah.
And if we start looking, I had lunch with a friend the other day who's leaving her corporate world and going out on her own, and the word perfection kept coming up. And I said, I'm banning that word from you, because as long as you focus on perfection, you will never look at how imperfect your perfection is within you. We have to focus on all the ability that we can do, all that we want to do, all that excites us, all that unites us, because that is where the perfection is. If we're looking at it needs to be perfect, by whose measurement?
I
Because you're doing something, oh, this is perfect, oh no it isn't, you've missed this or you've missed that. There's always going to be somebody to say to you it's not perfect. So stop putting yourself out there in the perfect world, and think, situations can be perfect, but if you look for perfection all the time, you're going to let yourself down, and you're also going to stop yourself from moving forward, because you're always waiting for that perfect moment.
we have a blueprint, don't we, for
Yeah.
so many things, for what love should look like, what
Yes.
perfection is.
Nice little boxes. Yes.
But everybody has a different perspective.
Yes.
It wouldn't do for us all the same. I went to an art exhibition recently, and it was an exhibition of two halves. One was realism, painting realism. So things looked like they looked like.
Mm-hmm.
And the other was very, very modern. And, I went to that art exhibition and I looked at them both sides, and I realized that for me, the very modern, whilst I could appreciate it, I didn't want it hanging on my wall.
Right. Yes.
I wanted something that was going to make me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
But there were other people who were thrilled and thought this stuff was wonderful. We each have a different perception, a different blueprint. And I think that once we recognize that we are enough,
Yeah.
just as we are,
Yeah.
and we actually learn to love ourselves, not be self-indulgent.
Right.
When you love yourself, then you're going to look after your body. You're
Yeah.
going to look after your emotions. You're going to look after your spiritual self, aren't you? In a way that you don't if you don't actually appreciate who you are. I find it fascinating that people have a set of criteria that they measure everybody else,
Yes.
and then the criteria that they use for themselves. And I would say it needs to be the same. And I think that's another component to this social depression. We're back to comparisons, aren't
Yeah.
we?
Yeah.
And we not only compare ourselves with other people, but we compare ourselves with this blueprint picture of what we ought to, should be,
Yeah.
need to be, rather than who we are.
We're seeing a huge surge today of very, very popular celebrities or politicians or people of, that are high profile, admitting depression, or even admitting suicidal thoughts or admitting illnesses. And instead of in the past, it would have been, oh God, no, we can't talk about that. It is now, what? You've had suicidal thoughts, you live with depression, yet you've achieved all of this.
Yes.
And that's the thing, is they've achieved it because that was where the passion and the commitment is. uh, because that's what they love doing. And that's also probably what keeps them going. And then they
Yes.
have the down times where they recognize they have that and they need to nurture and need to love themselves. in order to be able to go back and do what they're doing. We look at Dancing with the Stars, people dancing without limbs, or dancing deaf, or dancing this and that. We're seeing more and more out there that this is your challenge in life, but it doesn't define you.
I'd like to tell a story, if I may, and it's a true story. And for me, it was a really defining moment. When I left being a principal in 2004, because of my health, I had already done a lot of studying, and I decided I was going to become a neuro-linguistic master practitioner. And I did all of my studying for that with one organisation. And at the end of it, I decided I wanted to go and see as many different people using NLP as I could. And I ended up at the Excel Centre in London, which is probably one of the biggest centres where you can hold a course, to go and see Tony Robbins. It was Unleash the Power Within. And I went very cynically, I have to say, thinking, huge American, big hype, it's not going to last. I arrived and there were 10,000 people on the course.
Yeah.
In the morning, first morning, he was talking about a course in California that I quite liked the sound of, but I completely dismissed it. How would I, in a manual wheelchair that I couldn't particularly self-propel more than a few yards, on my own, go all the way to America and do this course? And so I just dismissed it, even though as a principal, I had worked for the government, I'd worked with hundreds of other schools, the National College, the London Institute. But when I went there, I had a taxi that took me from my house to my destination, always the same taxi driver who would push me in and then come and collect me and take me back. So dismissed it. In the afternoon, we did the fire walk. Now, for those who are not familiar with that, you walk about 30, 35 feet over hot coals in bare feet without getting burnt if you're in the right mindset.
Right.
Now, at that time, I'd just had a spinal stimulator fitted and I could walk a very few steps with help. And I was thrilled to walk over the coals and not get burnt. And as I sat in my wheelchair, I was facing the next person. They were a double amputee, no legs below the knee. He tipped himself onto his hands.
Wow.
And he walked on the hot coals on his hands. I thought, if he can do that, how am I self-limiting?
Right.
I went home, I booked my ticket, I booked my flight. Since then, I've been all over the world flying, studying and teaching, and for holidays. I am so grateful to that man.
Right.
Because what he taught me is the only limitations that we truly have are the ones we put in place ourselves.
Right. Exactly.
He doesn't know who he is. I've shared this story with thousands of people, and many of them have been inspired then to step out of their comfort zone and do something that they've been afraid of doing, but they've recognized that the only person who was holding them back was them.
Right. But that's the point, isn't it? The inspiration from someone else. I always say inspiration is invitation. When you are so inspired, it invites you to think, well, maybe I can. And, you know, we're not diminishing the challenges you face, the obstacles that are there. It is just to a point of navigating those that you can still go and do what you want to do. And you may have to ask for help, and you may, have to put some things in place because there are those challenges, those obstacles. But it should never be the excuse of why you can't go and do.
Of course there are. I mean, I'm never going to be a ballet dancer.
Right.
I'm unlikely to climb Mount Everest. And I think that, those of you out there where I call it the lighthouse syndrome, there are things which actually you cannot change.
Right.
But what you can do is change the way in which you react to it, and also the way in which you deal with it.
Yeah.
And so, this is about within your limitations, but just be mindful that your limitations are based very often on your beliefs.
Yes.
And it's sensible to challenge those beliefs about what you can and can't do.
And I think this, comes then into a partnership with your body. I have a few little challenges, and I know that I can go so far. And at that point, I have to now stop and go, no, this is now time for me to rejuvenate and spend time on myself. nurture myself so that I can get back up and go and do again. So no, you can't go run that marathon. No, you can't kind of do a whirlwind thing like that. You work within your parameters. You work within your parameters. And if there's a day that you say, no, I can't, I'm not going to today, this is my day, that is what you do. And don't
Self-care,
apologize about it.
self-care is really, really important.
Huge.
But I think I'd like to make there are many people. I'm working with a young man at the moment. He hadn't been out of his bedroom for 5 years.
Wow.
He had become addicted to gaming. He
Mm-hmm.
could not walk to the first lamppost because he hadn't walked.
Yeah.
And I've got to make the distinction, because part of the challenge for him is when you asked him to do anything that would make him the slightest bit uncomfortable, whether that was physical or emotional, he puts the brakes on. We've only
Yeah.
just started working together. And part of this is the challenge, I think, is working out what's important self-care,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really important, but also where is the level of challenge that
Mm-hmm.
you're not being self-indulgent
Mm-hmm.
to the point of doing yourself further damage.
Right.
And that's the challenge, because sometimes you get it right, sometimes you
Yeah.
get it badly wrong. But I think for all of this, if you're going to be the writer of your own life story, your own play, give yourself the part of the hero and not the victim.
Mm-hmm.
Give yourself the opportunity to try these things. And many people will say, I'm trying, but they get stuck in the quicksand. And
Yeah.
if you're watching this, try and move a pen or try and move a cushion, because in the act of doing, it's no longer trying.
Right.
So often it is about do it or don't do it, but don't beat yourself up about it. Do it, and do it honestly, and recognize that I'm doing this because this feels right, rather than I'm doing this because I've got to, or I feel I ought to, or I'm doing this because I am so frightened of stepping out of my comfort zone and being a bit uncomfortable that I'm going to stay stuck.
Right. And that is many, many people, that first step, right? It's that first step. It's Yoda that says do, don't say, just do. And of
Yeah,
course, we've got the lovely Nike logo, just do it. And I
yes,
think sometimes, the old fake it until you make it type thing is like,
absolutely.
believe you are that superhero, the superhero in you, and then everybody has one that wants to come out, wants to be able to do this. And I remember being at boarding school. And our boarding school was in a village, and it was surrounded by moors. This is in England. And we would go out on these huge walks, and the walks would feel so daunting. But our teacher said, we're just going to go and walk over to that tree. When we got to that tree, let's walk over to here now. And now let's go over to here. And the next thing you know, you're home. We're
Yes.
back at school, and it didn't feel that long. So set yourself up the small steps.
Yeah.
Be triumphant in that first goal, in that first step that you've made. And then you go, it's not as hard as I thought it was. I can do another step.
Yeah.
But if you look at the whole daunting picture, no, that's always going to cripple you down. So one step at a time.
And every journey starts with the first step,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
Another analogy that I sometimes use with people is, if you're a meat eater, you wouldn't eat a cow in one sitting.
Right.
If you have dreadful indigestion, but meal by meal, mouthful by mouthful,
Exactly.
you're going to enjoy it. Or a whole field of corn if you're a vegetarian.
Yes.
Breaking it down into bite-sized chunks or single steps makes such a difference.
Yeah. It does. And it also gives you your chance for your psyche to actually go, what? You can do this. Look at that. You didn't think. I know that, when I came out of my marriage, I was, it took a while, to actually ask for it. And when I actually came out of it, and anytime I hit something hard, I look back and go, look what you left. Look what you found the courage for,
Yeah.
the strength for. Look
Yeah.
at what you became because you were willing to place that value upon yourself. And every time something gets hard, I remind myself what I've already achieved. And if I could do it then, I can do it now. Okay, give yourself a hug,
Mm-hmm.
a little love. You can have a pity party for 5 minutes and now get on with it.
It's interesting because we've shifted. Our first part of our conversation was very much about the macro, wasn't it?
Right.
Things that are outside our control. And now we've started talking about what is within our control.
Yes.
And for me, that's the secret of dealing with social depression.
Right.
That if you focus on the big stuff over which you feel you have very little control, it becomes completely and utterly overwhelming. And you start to live in that sense of uncertainty and fear and overwhelm. But action by action, moment by moment, in our own personal lives, we can make a difference.
Yeah.
Smiling,
Yeah.
makes you feel good, doing things that make you laugh, doing something for other people, being of service, random acts of kindness, enjoying nature, being in the moment, recognizing it's autumn here, the colors are just stunning. That as you drive, instead of being focused on where you've got to go, of course, eyes on the road, but
Yes.
actually enjoying
Yes.
what you see. Most people have either a family or they have pets. There are things there to be grateful for and things that can make you laugh. And laughter, I think, laughter and exercise are the two big stress busters.
Yes.
And if you can do them both, all to the better. But I think, ultimately, you are the arbiter. You are the arbiter of you, and I'm the arbiter of
Yep.
the quality of my life. And everybody who's watching or listening to this, it is your choice. Everything we do is a choice, even not choosing
Exactly.
choice. And every choice has consequences. And often it's the not choosing where things have the most far-reaching effect, because they're almost under the radar, aren't they? They
Yeah.
just drift on and feel as if they get bigger.
The
But
la 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 la, hands over the head and over the eyes. I don't want to see, I don't want to know, I'm not going to choose. You've just chosen.
absolutely.
Yeah. I,
And moment by moment, we have a choice as to whether we're going to get the best out of life or we're not.
right. And this is, I think, the mindful thing for us to do is that it's very, very easy to get caught up in the global hysteria. Having been just come back from the UK and being there for 19 days on Brexit, 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 Brexit. You guys live with it all the time. After 19 days with it, I was saturated with it. We get
We've
enough
had
of
3 years of it.
right. And we've had Trumpism, which we've had for the last 3 years, and I'm in Canada and we still get it, right? Um, the whole thing is it's very easy to get caught up with it. They said what? They did what? What mudslinging is happening now? It's very easy to get upset. But at some point, take that deep breath and go, okay, are you contributing to the negative energy?
Yeah.
Or can you change something about it? Can you change the reaction to it? Can you change the dialogue around it? And we cripple ourselves by believing we can't do anything because
Mm-hmm.
we get caught up in the helplessness of it all,
We do
because
indeed.
that's the hysteria vibe, right?
Yeah.
But if we step back and go, you know what, the more I rise up within my own life, my own vibration, my own empowerment, the more I'm able to contribute to the solution. And I invite you to join me. Let
Yeah.
us, instead of feeding the negative, feed what is positive, what we can do about it,
Yeah.
and collectively we start shifting the entire consciousness.
Because isn't it interesting? In a couple of weeks' time in the UK, it's going to be a big charitable event called Children in Need, which
Mm,
happens every year. People come together, they interact with each other in a way that they don't at any other time of the year.
right.
They do silly things, and it's all focused on doing something to help children within the UK but around the world live a better life.
Right.
And they have a common purpose. They're doing it in ways that are fun.
Yeah.
And I do think being playful and light-hearted is something that's incredibly important. And everybody feels good. It's a night on television where you're watching group after group of people getting out of their comfort zone,
Yeah.
doing something that's not normal for them in order to support and help others. So for me, it's got the recipe of a perfect life, if you like,
Yeah.
because it's got people who are caring and compassionate about each other and the world. They're coming together in a sense of connectivity. They are doing something which makes, for the most part, makes them smile. And although they're doing it for children who, some of their situations are pretty desperate, either
Right.
through illness or disability or bereavement or poverty or all sorts of things. But what people are doing is saying, in my small way, I can make a difference and I am choosing to make that difference. And they have raised millions and millions of pounds for causes. They don't take any money for administration. Every penny that's earned goes to these little, they're not the big charities, they're the little unsung heroes in each community that are making a difference day by day to children's lives. Now, wouldn't it be great if we had, I'm not necessarily talking about it being charitable events, but events where we come together to do something positive, where people are supportive of one another, where you can have a good laugh.
Yes.
And we can be light-hearted, but at the same time have a sense of purpose, which is about being of service.
I hold a luncheon every month for women entrepreneurs. And although we're all in business, it's not a business meeting. It's about life, it's about challenges, it's about laughter, but it's also like, I've come into this problem and then let somebody else say, okay, have you tried this? Have you tried that? That camaraderie of support with one another. And women are very good at this. Men, I think, are still learning that it's okay for you guys to get it. Stop competing with one another. Just simply relax and enjoy each other. And while you're at it, throw out something and see what somebody's idea is on it. We've also, I think, got into this thing that we need to prove ourselves all the time. Instead of saying, look, this is my ingredient in the dish. Can everybody else put an ingredient in? And let's look at the whole dish and how we've done this together. Because we've been told everything has to be individual. And no, it's collaborative. If we could start bringing collaboration in no matter what else we're doing in the world, where we all collaborate together, we'll all bring the ingredients into the dish, we're going to end up with a feast that really feeds multiple areas of our lives and society. But I don't want to hear competitive. I want to hear collaboration.
I would suggest to you that, again, go back to cavemen and women.
Yeah.
Could not survive unless you collaborated.
Yes.
In fact, the greatest punishment was being
isolate.
sent out, because your likelihood of survival was pretty remote.
Right.
And I think whether I suspect it was probably in the 80s when suddenly it stopped being about working together and started to be, top dog and competition. And it's an interesting one, because I think competition in the sense of, if you look at athletes, for example, wanting to be the best you can be, I think the competition has to be with oneself rather than with other people. Am I doing my best? Am I challenging any limiting beliefs or limiting behaviors? But where people are at each other's throats and trying to do each other down, not only does it do the other person down, but in that we diminish ourselves, I think.
Yes, there's the young, activist right now, they're climate activists. And, she was in America. She was recently here in Canada, went down very well. But she was in America, and then because she has Asperger's, people came out, oh, she's mentally retarded, she's this and that. The way she handles everything, the more protesting you give, the more you show yourself. You don't show me. And that's the point, is that if you're so busy to bring somebody else down, it's not them you're hurting, it's yourself that you're hurting. Because if you have to bring somebody else down to put yourself up, then you really need to have a good look at the mirror and go, what is so insecure within yourself that you need to do that, to tear other people down, to make you more important? Because that is something that we all need to address in ourselves. The finger pointing, there's three pointing back at you.
Being right, I think, is highly overrated.
Oh,
don't get me wrong. If you're flying my plane or you're doing an operation on my brain.
Yes.
I want you to do it
Yes.
right. Thank
Yes.
you.
Please.
But in terms of an argument, how many people win or think they win the argument by having the last word
All
or
right.
flouncing out and slamming the door? But in winning the argument, they diminish the relationship.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think for me, having the strength to recognize that we don't have all the answers. And actually, your opinion might differ to mine, but it's just as valid.
But are we meant to have all the answers? Where's this thing that we're meant to have all this knowledge? We're not. We were always designed to be a part of the equation and
Yes,
bring those equations together. You look at the way a computer is made. You look at even take from the medical system. There's dentists, there's eye doctors, there's liver doctors, there's heart doctors, there's this doctor. Everybody has a specialty, and when they're needed, they come together to
yes.
work on the whole. What is this thing, this pressure that we need to be all and know all? I don't
Well,
understand
and
that.
what's even more interesting for me is that when people don't know, they believe that they will be diminished by not
Yeah.
knowing. So they
Yeah.
make it up and they make it sound as if it's absolute fact.
Um,
When the
hey,
reality is,
might be talking about somebody who tweets a lot. Yes.
well, I have to say they're not the only one.
Right.
I was working, I did some couple coaching and I was working with a couple, again, a fairly new couple I'm working with. And they were, when they arrived, they were so busy talking, getting their point across, that nobody was doing any listening.
No. No.
I think we've been given 2 ears and a mouth, one mouth, for a very good reason.
Right. Yes.
But they were so busy being right that in that they had lost the fact that they were actually destroying their relationship. And I think it comes from a point of insecurity.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think people who have to be right
Right.
very often have poor self-esteem.
Yeah.
What they have is big egos.
Big
And
is
it's
all or the insecurity of,
partly
yeah.
insecurities, yeah.
Yes.
I think that's, for me, an ego is pretty much the same thing.
Well, yeah, at the end of the I had a course that was the importance of you, which is in placing importance on your own well-being, but that's very different to self-importance, which you said something
Oh,
similar
yeah,
earlier. That self-importance is driven by your ego, and as long as you are all right, Jack, who cares who suffers for it?
yeah,
As long as you're all right. And we see that a great deal, but and that is always insecurity driven, because if you're secure with yourself, you don't need to prove yourself every 5 minutes.
yeah.
But it's also, I think, this need for validation. Do you see me? Do you hear me? Because you may be listening, but do you actually hear what I have to say? And I think for most couples or most people that are dealing with things, they don't feel heard.
I think that's very true. And I think one of the challenges in modern day is there is so much white noise.
Right.
There's so much going on that how often does somebody stop and give you their undivided attention, eyeball to eyeball? I
Yeah.
see you, I hear you, and
I want to listen to you.
are prepared to listen
Yeah.
rather than trying to prepare the answer.
Right. Right.
So they're not listening at all, really.
Yeah.
And I think that makes such a lot of difference when it begins to happen. Then relationships, whether you're talking about personal relationships or professional relationships, they change significantly for the better.
It's the relationship with self too, though, isn't it?
Well, everything
Because
starts with that.
because we've all got that negative dialogue. I mean,
Yeah.
I find myself now and again, and my son picks it up.
Totally.
Go, Mom, that doesn't match who you are.
Yeah.
And it's old residual patterning. That
Absolutely.
I'm feeling a little insecure at the moment. Comes up, and it's
We're
like,
all triggered, aren't we,
yeah,
into old stuff at times.
yeah,
For me, the thing is how long you stay there
yes.
and how
Be
quick
aware. Oh no, I
you
missed
aware.
you. Yeah, I just missed
Yeah.
you a long time ago. What are you still doing here? Buzz off.
And shut the hell up, actually.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I was just rereading a book by Eckhart Tolle, The
Yeah.
Power of Now, which I read some time ago. Just started rereading it today. And, he was talking about being watchful of our thoughts,
Right.
rather than entering into them. What's really going on here? you
Yeah.
know, because when you are able to watch them without any judgment,
Yeah.
then you start to get to the place where you can have that stillness and ultimately that sense of connection. And I think if we were all more still within
Yeah.
ourselves and gave ourselves more opportunity, if you add that to actually more connection with other people instead of division, and for me that connection comes through from actually caring about your neighbour,
Yeah.
your colleague, your family member, or whatever, and being prepared to take some action in your own world to make something within it better, then everything would improve.
The ripple effect.
Live from a place of love, and I don't mean pink and fluffy love,
Right.
because true love can be quite exacting. It's not about being indulgent. It is about wanting the best for yourself and other people, and actually being prepared to take the action that will make the difference.
And it can be just a small thing, because that
Everything
it
starts with
ripples out,
that.
right? I
Yeah.
just did a show this last week with a reoccurring, she used to be my co-host on Channeling Ascensions, and it's on Ignite Your Heart and Soul this last week, and it was actually on being alone with self. And how many people can actually be alone in their own company
Or
and
many,
enjoy it?
and when we define alone, that's alone without the telly on,
Right.
without the
Yes.
radio on,
Yes.
but just
And not
being.
feeling lonely, but
Yeah.
enjoying being alone with self. Yeah.
I've met so many people who come as clients, and learning to be their own best friend, to appreciate who they are. And I think being ready and able and enjoying one's own company is part of that.
Yes.
Because if you don't enjoy your own company, you're then totally dependent upon other people, aren't you?
But also, if you don't enjoy your own company, why should somebody else?
Well, that's true. But lots of people will go out of their way to be good company to other people,
Mm-hmm. But not
but
to
can't be
themselves.
good company to themselves.
Yeah.
And, it just strikes me that whatever comes at the end of this life, nobody really knows.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes sense, doesn't it, to give yourself the very best opportunity to enjoy this life.
That's what it's for.
Well,
We're here as this, beautiful blank slate with a whole load of DNA memory from past lives. And we're here in that self-discovery of what we're here for. What is our instrument? Which orchestra do I join? How do I learn to play this? Who does it have an effect on? How does it lift my own heart and soul? How does it give me meaningful purpose? Because that is the journey of life. And, we talked before about having many jobs, but there's going to be many directions happening in your life, many chapters in your own book of life. And you want each chapter to be something that you would enjoy reading, that you
yes,
would like to look back on and go, that chapter, I really got out and did things. Or that chapter was a tough one, but look, I came out of it. And the next chapter was a great one for me. So be excited about your own book of life, right?
absolutely. And how many people do you know that fear failure? And see
Yeah.
that when things go wrong, it's a failure, oh dear, poor me,
Yeah.
rather than what can I learn? Because we don't learn very often. We don't learn when things go right, but we learn
No.
a hell of a lot when things go wrong.
I just
But
call them redirects.
yeah, it would
Because
take
that didn't work, so redirect it to something else. Just keep on trying until you find something that works. But instead of failure, because failure is always something that you did not succeed at it, so therefore you must have done something wrong. That's how we've put failure at. I look at it, that didn't work. Okay, so I'm going to redirect my energy or my thought or my process to something else that might work, and just keep on at it, because Einstein did, and that's why we have a light bulb.
my definition of failure is that you fail to give it a go, then it's a
Mm,
done deal, or you fail to learn from it.
right. Yeah.
But then the other thing is that people are frightened of succeeding.
Yes.
And
Yes.
people, I think it's about 50-50, rather than stepping into that place where you're going to give of your best, and you're going to be curious and playful. And if a decision, rather than it being right or wrong, it's just different.
Yeah.
an experience is an opportunity to learn. I mean, our whole life journey is about learning, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what
Yes.
we're here to do. And
And
so,
what do you do with that knowledge? You know, the thing is it's not about just gathering the knowledge.
no,
It's
that's not
gathering the wisdom to know what to do with the knowledge, right?
it's not a dusty encyclopedia
Right. Yeah.
on a shelf. It is, as you say, it's a tool with which to then
Yeah.
make, and for me, it's always about making a positive difference.
Right.
How can I use what I've learned to make a positive difference to other people? And that positive difference may just be that it's a stranger in the street and you smile and say good morning. And it could be the only person that person has, you could be the only one that has actually spoken to them all day. You know, you can make a difference
Yeah.
in the tiniest acts, so long as you do it with intention.
I go down to a little bakery here called the Dutch Bakery in Victoria because I love their vanilla creams. So I
Yeah.
pop in there for afternoon tea and I see so many of us all on our own. And I always try and sit next to somebody that's on our own and try and engage a conversation. Because I know that sometimes I enjoy the conversation. I enjoy where do they come from? What's their life? I love that. But also for some of them, the reason they're out there is because they need people and interaction around them. And I think one of the saddest things, you know, never mind social depression, I think one of the saddest things that we see today is loneliness.
I think
Where,
all part of, I would
yeah,
say that's a very big strand of social
yeah.
depression.
And it's
Um,
because people don't feel the belong. I mean, you know, the village was only as strong as everyone's participation, and we never left anybody alone. They were always included. They were always looked after. They were always felt valued, even if they had quote quote retired. And now
yeah.
we just seem to either stick them in a home or they're living on their own and they're forgotten because
Mm.
we're too busy chasing our own tails that we forget that there's people out there. How do we bring people together? And sometimes it is that acknowledgement. It's a nice day, isn't it? Oh, what terrible weather today.
Yeah.
Start a conversation with someone.
Yes. You show your UK roots talking about the weather.
Yeah,
We can talk
yes,
we can talk about the weather endlessly. I
yes.
don't think it's the same in
Well,
Canada, but
it's a good door opener, isn't it? Sometimes it's that one to just get the gap, and you know whether they're going to open a door or
yeah.
not, right? You know, and if I see that door shut and the eyes are down, okay. But you know, then it might be that door opener where you can slide on in.
But just
And
inviting the connection.
yes,
I think
yes,
if everybody took the time to speak to someone that they don't know, going on the train, in the lift,
yeah.
walking down the road, and just said hi and smiled and good day, I think, even that just lifts your spirits, doesn't it?
Why have we become so afraid of the person sitting next to us? We've been taught somewhere along the line subliminally that everybody's an enemy. Keep your eyes
Exactly.
down, don't communicate, you can't trust anyone. And you know, when you
Exactly.
look at the statistics of those that are bad to those that are good, the good far outweigh, but we put all the emphasis on the bad. How
It's
about we
not,
look at each other and say hello and find out for ourselves?
but the news is only news if it's
Sells fear.
or
Yeah,
it's negative. We'll get the little sweetener at the end of the
yeah,
program when they give you the nice story about the dog or the musician or whatever. Um, but I think we have become so exposed to news and the celebrity news. Celebrities are built up, and then as soon as they're famous, the media want to knock them down.
oh yeah,
There's something
yeah,
about the negativity which surrounds us on a daily basis, and I believe it's for me it equates to Ebola or to bubonic plague.
yeah. The
It
mob
is
mentality, right? How it
it
spreads
is
so quickly.
infectious, it
Yeah,
spreads quickly, and it can leave you feeling lifeless and
right.
powerless. And I think it's time that we all individually took the power into our own hands to say, enough, these things may be happening. But I'll give you an example of where people have made a difference. David Attenborough put on the Blue Planet program,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and he shared his concern about plastics, um, particularly in the sea, although there's as much concern on land. I don't know about Canada, but in England or in the UK, group after group after group has been set up to go and trawl the beaches and pick up plastic litter. There are now movements to ban plastic straws, one-use plastic. He has galvanized the ordinary person in the street to take action, and we are seeing the wave growing and things happening. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we, instead of being the victims to social depression,
Yes.
started to take control and say, do you know what? We are not going to allow them to be divisive. We're not going to allow this fear to penetrate our very soul. We are going to stand up and start to recognize the good in people, because most people are intrinsically good and doing the best they can. We're going to be positive. Even when bad things happen, good things can come out of it. And it's how we as people utilize that opportunity that's going to make a difference. You know, if you're listening to this, watching this, you have the capacity to make small changes that will make a big difference if you do it consistently.
It's the commitment, it's the participation.
Yeah.
It is the, it is the, I call, my new word is actionism instead of activism. It is, again, you do not have to go out and fill the whole reservoir. Every single drop of kindness counts. And I think if we can simply turn around and be kind to one another, be kind to yourself.
I was just about to say, being kind to yourself.
That's the way you start. I used to, in my own therapy with my clients, I have them have good conversations with their mirror. It is very, very hard to look at yourself eyeball to eyeball and pull the wool over your own eyes.
Yes.
Right? Because your face is looking back at you. You know when you're conning yourself. And it's like, if you are so negative, if you are feeling so down, if you are all of that, have a good conversation with the mirror and go, but why? Too much news? Stop watching it. Around too many negative people? Don't see them anymore. Feel helpless? Go and do something that's empowering for someone else. Whether it's a small thing, a big thing, whatever you want to do, be proactive.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more.
It's all about participation, isn't it? In our own lives, in our own empowerment. We bring then that empowerment to other people, and that ripple effect. We keep saying the domino, the ripple effect, but that is the whole thing about quantum physics, is the ripple effect of energy. And when you've stepped into a higher energy, like 580 hertz for love, when you've stepped into that higher energy, it automatically starts sending out a beacon, beep, 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 and it invites other people to rise up to that frequency. So we are the solution we seek. With a problem, but we're also the solution.
It doesn't need many people to reach critical mass, does it?
No, just tip the scale. That's it.
Absolutely, yeah. So I hope everybody that is watching this will, choose over the next few days, collect gratitudes.
Yes.
I think it's a very powerful exercise. As you go through the day, just look at little things that you can be grateful for. Make it easy. So for me, the natural world is a really great source of gratitudes. Good plumbing, hot showers. I was away for the weekend on a course, and there were communal showers which were dire because they didn't run. I like mine really hot. When I got home, I was so grateful for my shower. When the cat does something that makes me laugh, a great cup of tea, a friend phoning. And then all the way through the day, you can't collect a gratitude without being in the moment.
Right.
And then just before you go to sleep, scan the day and choose your top 3 or your top 5. And what it does is you go to sleep while you're sleeping, you go through the day anyway and take the learning from it. And if you go to sleep on a positive, over a few days, a week, 2 weeks, you start to feel different.
Yeah.
Do it for a month and it becomes a habit. And I've got many clients who do this with their children. They get them to collect gratitudes, and it's one of the things they do before the child goes to bed, and they have the family, whoever's putting the children to bed. So what are your gratitudes? These are mine, and they share them. And I think that's a lovely way of ending the day for the children and for the adults. Very simple, cost nothing,
No.
very powerful.
And the whole vibrational energy in there helps you sleep better. And
Yes.
then when you wake up to the possibilities, not to the improbabilities.
Absolutely.
The youngest person I've interviewed was 10, had written a book, 365 Days of Gratitude, where she had every single day, simple things she was gratitude to and grateful about. One of the statements she said is, I don't understand, if you're unhappy at something, why don't you go and do something that makes you happy?
Wise words. They say out of the mouths of babes, don't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Very old soul and a very wise one, I would say.
Why do we stay in unhappiness? Are we wallowing in our own self-pity? Oh, look at me, I'm suffering. It's okay to have a good bitch now and again, or moan if you're feeling, especially if you have physical challenges. Yes, you need to have someone share you and give you some love. But just to be bitching and moaning all day long, how is it making you feel? Probably not very good.
No. I agree with you, and it's certainly the way in which I live my life, and it's the way I've managed very significant physical challenges.
Yeah.
And I've now worked with thousands of people, and they have found it works for them too.
Right.
And
that simple wisdom of knowledge being passed on.
Yes.
And really, when it comes down to it, it is always the simple things, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not rocket science.
No.
And when you analyze it, you think, well, isn't that common sense?
Yes.
I think it's very strange that we call it common sense, because often it's pretty rare.
Yes. Or we may know it, but we don't apply it.
Absolutely.
That application is key, folks. You can't, the engine ain't going to work if you're not going to push the button or turn the key.
No, that's very true.
Now, we're going to be doing another show in a couple of weeks, all to do about your new program. So can you tell everybody about that as well, please? Because they also have on this blog a link back to everything that you're going to be doing. But can you let our audience know right now what is going to be coming up on our next show?
I'm about to launch the Enlightened Leadership Program. It's the culmination of 30 years' working with developing transformational leadership. And I've created it because I've become so concerned working with organizations and with clients, individual clients, that I believe the quality of leadership is pretty dire in so many places, and could be much better even in those places when it's good. So it has two distinct but intertwining strands, working on the basis that in order to lead other people well and in an enlightened way, you need to lead yourself first.
Yes.
So one whole part of this program is about developing yourself personally and spiritually. And the other half is looking at conventional leadership, but also taking that into the place. This is for developing the spiritual matriarchs and patriarchs, people who want to make a difference, people who want to lead with integrity, heart, and compassion.
Yeah.
It's 10 months long. It's been accredited by CPD, which is the biggest kite marker of professional development in the UK. And it's not a quick fix.
Right.
It's really for those people who want to work on themselves and become enlightened leaders who can lead people, develop their potential, and become self-organizing teams. It looks at using your intuition. It looks at what's your living legacy going to be. I'm very excited about it. As I say, it's the culmination of 30 years' work. I know it works. I've now used it in my own organization, and I've developed it even further with many, many organizations and individuals since. And it all gets launched the week after next.
Excellent. And we will be doing a show bringing you all about that, and where we're going to break it down exactly, what it means. And, leadership isn't about you being up there and telling everybody what to do. Leadership is being that inspiration that invites people to know what they can do. You're leading them to become leaders in their own lives.
Absolutely.
But until you're a leader in your own life, how can someone follow you?
Yeah.
And what do you represent? And we need having done many, many, many shows on the new business paradigm, it is now the heart consciousness
Yes.
of stepping into it. It's like putting people and planet before
Yeah.
profit, not
Yes.
profit at the expense of. And it again requires new thought process, which will be followed by different forms of action and inclusion. And be, you know, I always say in business, it's not about this is my business persona, this is my personal persona. You are your persona in business and
You're the
out.
common denominator, aren't you?
Yes, exactly.
It's fascinating. I've worked with many organizations now, and where the leaders have become enlightened and work in the way in which that the program helps people, supports people to develop, interestingly, productivity goes up,
Yeah.
relationships are better, profitability goes up. Why? Because you are embracing and um, celebrating
Mm-hmm.
the expertise, skills, enthusiasm, potential of everybody.
Right.
You are no longer, I've got to do it myself because then at least I know it's done properly.
Right.
But you are growing people who have sharing your vision and taking responsibility for their performance in a very different way. But it has to start with you.
Yeah. Bottom line, that's it. You are your business, right?
Yes, definitely.
Exactly. Well, I'm looking forward to doing that show with you and breaking it down there because,
Thank you.
you know, I'm really passionate about that in the sense that, you know, everything we want in life, we have to be in life. You
Yes.
know, we don't get it just because I demand it. We get it because we have worked for it, we've become it. You know, it's, we want people to work with us. We've got to be people who are willing to work with other people, gain that
Yes.
collaboration. So stay tuned, folks. Here on this posting, you will see the link to that as well, and the whole breaking down of what we're going to be talking about and when that show comes up. And then, of course, in November, having you back with Dr. Marilyn Joyce, where we're going to be talking about festive stress and how to avoid it, because
Yes.
people get so stressed up around Christmas, whether you're in business or whether your business gets affected by the retail business, or whether you are purchasing and you've got to get that perfect gift, the stress level is really high.
Yes.
So that is another one that will be coming up. So how do people get hold of you right now? Where did they discover more about the program? How do they get hold of you and learn more about you and all of your books, which again are listed right here on this blog?
If you go to the website, https:// genuinely, then a hyphen, and then the word you, genuinely-u.co. You'll find all of the books in the book section. You'll find all of the lots of free stuff, but you'll also find the programs there. The leadership program, the website's just about to go live, and that's https:// enlightenedleadership.co. So enlightenedleadership.co, and you can find all about the leadership program there.
Wonderful. And here on selfdiscoverymedia.com, all you have to do is put in her name, Gina GardIner, and you will see all of the shows, because she will actually have her own 3-show page there. And so you just need to put in her name. Right now it's just this one show and what the leadership program is going to be, then the leadership program and the other show. So she'll have her own page here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. Always a delight to speak with you, Gina, always.
Thank you very much. Likewise.
And I look forward to the next one, because we really do have to change the way we do business, and not just the leadership in businesses, but the leadership, you know, on the home front in anything else that we do in life, because we are our own product and we've got to represent. And what you put out there is what people are going to buy. So do you really want them purchasing something that is going to be negative or positive? So you've got to step into self. So I look forward to that show and to the other ones coming up. But thank you so much for being with us here today and sharing about social depression and what we can do about it.
My pleasure. Lovely to speak to you as always. And take care.
Until next time, folks, remember this. If you find yourself getting stressed out and it's just all too much information, stop looking it up, stop listening to it, stop reading the papers, and start looking at those little things to be grateful for. Start doing some acts of kindness, and start off by being kind to yourself. Because remember, whatever the problem is out there, you are the solution. Until next time, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show and were inspired. Come and visit us at selfdiscoverymedia.com and see what other shows we have for you. And please do visit our selfdiscoverycommunity.org and see how you can be a part of giving back. Thank you very much.